You walk onto the ward, it's 8 a.m., you're ready to start your shift, and then you see it. A critical dose of an essential medication for a post-op patient was just completely missed overnight. Or maybe it's a near miss. You catch an insulin order that's 10 times the right strength literally just before it's given.
Right.
The patient is stable, the immediate danger is gone, but now the pressure is on. What do? Document, disclose, report.
Yeah.
And, how do you navigate that whole complex mess of candor and paperwork without it becoming about blame?
Welcome. And that exact moment of pressure, that split-second choice between just fixing it and properly documenting it, that's precisely what this deep dive is all about.
Okay.
We want to cut through all the administrative noise around medical incident reporting and focus purely on system learning and, crucially for you, those non-negotiable professional duties that have to guide your actions.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're distilling the high-yield stuff from expert-curated sources, and we're focusing squarely on the UK medical context. We're talking GMC alignment, LFPSC, and the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework, or PSIRF. We need to know that hierarchy of actions, the systems we have to use, and all those psychological traps that can make good doctors choose the wrong response.
And this is such a high-frequency topic because it's testing your ability to prioritize. It's all about whether you understand that patient safety comes from continuous improvement. It's not from a culture of secrecy or, individual blame.
Right.
We're trying to move beyond just knowing the names of these systems to really understanding the profound cultural shift that they represent.
I see the hierarchy, but let's talk about the hardest bit, the mindset shift. It's so easy to say don't blame, but when you're standing right there looking at a potentially harmful mistake, the instinct is often to just, quietly fix it and move on. Minimize the friction.
It is.
How do we actually internalize the central truth here?
Well, the central exam truth, and really the core of modern safety practice, is this. You make the situation safe, you disclose honestly, you file a factual report promptly, you escalate any systemic risks, and then you contribute to the learning.
So it has to be report to learn, not report to blame.
Exactly. That distinction is absolutely fundamental.
So when we talk about how these scenarios get scored, what does the system actually reward most?
The scoring logic, it's a really clear hierarchy of your safety duty. It rewards 3 things, and they're in a strict order.
Okay.
Number 1 is immediate risk reduction. So stabilizing the patient, making the environment safe. If the patient is unstable, no amount of paperwork is going to matter.
Right, of course.
2 is candor with prompt documentation. This means telling your seniors straight away, disclosing appropriately to the patient, and, recording objective facts right then and there.
And the third?
And finally, number 3 is system learning. And that means using the official reporting infrastructure, which is now LFPSC, to drive a follow-up and get some long-term fixes in place.
So if I spend 5 minutes filling out an online form before I've called my senior or, checked the patient's vitals again, I've already failed that safety priority, even if I follow the documentation rule.
Precisely. Clinical action always comes before administrative action. Incident reporting is there to capture both the harmful events and those really crucial near misses. But it complements urgent clinical action and the duty of candor. It never, ever replaces them.
And this all funnels back to the GMC's professional framework. So what are the non-negotiable anchors that the GMC gives us here?
The anchors are pretty robust and clear. You have to act promptly to reduce risk. You must be open and honest when things go wrong. And that includes offering a genuine apology and a clear explanation of what's being done.
And for the documentation itself?
And for documentation, you must maintain clear, accurate, contemporaneous records that are strictly factual. You have to avoid any kind of narrative that assigns blame to one person.
Okay, so when stress hits, we need a clear, stepwise framework to make sure nothing gets missed. What's that high-yield action hierarchy we have to internalize? The whole stabilize, inform, report thing.
Let's break that down into 4 sequential steps.
Great. Start with step 1.
First, you stabilize the patient and the environment. This is your immediate make safe action. You stop the wrong infusion, you replace the failing defib battery, you secure the area. The physical safety check is paramount.
And what's the very next step after you've made it safe?
Next, you notify your senior or supervising lead immediately. This ensures you've got the right clinical and governance oversight. Your consultant, your registrar, your ward manager, they need to know, not just to support you, but to manage all the complexity that comes next.
Like the disclosure.
Exactly. Which brings us to the next step. Then, you disclose to the patient appropriately. This is your duty of candor. You acknowledge the incident, you apologize, you explain the immediate consequences, and you outline what actions you're taking.
And that level of disclosure would vary, I assume.
It does. It varies with the severity of harm, but the act of being open is always required.
And the final piece, the bit that ensures this mistake actually benefits the whole system.
Finally, you report via the official system LFPSC, and you escalate any ongoing systemic risks immediately. This is the trigger. It's the mechanism that kicks off that organizational learning process that's defined by PSIRF.
So you have to make sure that the failure, whether it's equipment or a process, doesn't just stop with your immediate fix.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, but let's talk about a real-world challenge.
Sure.
What if my senior, who's, highly respected, tells me to just record it as a local note? And they suggest that filing a formal LFPSC report is just unnecessary bureaucracy that'll reflect badly on the team. I mean, how do you ethically handle that kind of peer pressure?
That is the crucial conflict, and navigating that is what separates the high-scoring responses from the low-scoring ones.
Right.
Your GMC duty to report errors and contribute to safety is an individual professional obligation. It supersedes any local politics or peer pressure. If a senior asks you to conceal something or alter facts or avoid formal reporting, you have to politely but firmly state your intention to follow the formal process.
And if they push back?
That pressure itself should probably be escalated, often through a freedom to speak up guardian if it's persistent. Your duty is to patient safety and transparency, regardless of any local resistance.
That brings us right to the systems themselves. And this is where it gets a little complex conceptually because this infrastructure is, well, it's all relatively new.
It is.
We need to know what LFPSC and PSIRF are and how they actually define this whole incident response process.
Indeed. And these frameworks, they underpin the entire modern safety infrastructure in the UK. So LFPSC, the Learn from Patient Safety Events service, that's the national digital platform, it's used to record and analyze patient safety incidents.
That's the repository for all the factual info.
That's it. And it's so important to remember that LFPSC replaced the old NRLS system, which was decommissioned recently. This transition itself just shows how complex this is. I mean, systems don't change overnight.
No, they don't.
Exactly. The fact that local policies sometimes still mention systems like STICE for, specific external notifications, or that you access LFPSC via a local risk system like DATIX, it just shows how messy these transitions can be on the ground.
But the main concept is that LFPSC is the national database where all this learning data comes together.
Right.
So LFPSC is the where the data goes. What is PSIRF, the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework?
PSIRS is the how. It defines the organizational learning process, and this is probably the most profound cultural change. It moves the NHS away from that older, often really lengthy, reactive, and sometimes punitive approach of root cause analysis, or RCA, for every single incident.
So how is PSIRF different from that old RCA approach? Conceptually, I mean.
The difference is systems thinking versus individual failure analysis. Traditional RCA, it often looked for a single linear cause and effect story.
Right.
And that frequently ended up pointing the finger at the last person in the line. PSIRF recognizes that patient safety incidents are almost always caused by a really complex interaction of systemic factors. Things like design flaws, process issues, training gaps, staffing levels.
So instead of asking, why did that nurse forget the drug? PSIRF is asking, why did the system design make it reasonable, or maybe even inevitable, for staff under pressure to make that kind of error?
Precisely. PSIRF demands a proportionate response. Not every incident needs a massive, huge investigation. Organizations publish a patient safety incident response plan, a PSRP, which details their priorities for deep learning.
So it allows them to focus resources on the real systemic threats.
Yes, ensuring that the learning is targeted, it's proportional, and ultimately it's effective. And this is a massive improvement in safety science.
That reframes incident reporting completely. It makes the factual quality of the report absolutely essential. If I use my report to blame a person, I'm actively undermining the whole PSIRF process before it's even started.
You're spot on. The report has to be factual. Who, what, where, when, objective observations, and the immediate actions you took. Crucially, you have to avoid putting in your opinion or speculation or any narrative that points the finger at a specific colleague.
So if you write, the mistake happened because the night registrar was negligent, you've
poisoned the well. You've diverted the whole organization's focus away from the system failure that allowed that negligence to happen in the first place.
Let's talk about a common pitfall here. The near-miss rule. Why is reporting the error that was caught, the one that caused no harm, just as vital as reporting a catastrophic event?
Near misses, like that tenfold insulin error that was caught by a second checker, they're golden opportunities. They are free data points that expose system hazards without anyone getting hurt. If you only report incidents that result in physical harm, you are ignoring the vast majority of threats in your system.
So near-miss reporting is proactive safety maintenance.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And how does that near-miss reporting link back to the professional duty of candor?
They're parallel duties. Candor requires you to be open with the patient when things go wrong. Now, if the near miss was caught internally, formal candor procedures might not be triggered, but the duty to record that error via LFPSC absolutely remains.
And if harm did occur?
If actual harm occurred, then you have to integrate your factual report with the required formal steps of candor. Acknowledge, apologize, explain the consequences, and outline the corrective actions being taken, both clinically and systemically. The SJT is going to reward the options that manage both sides of that coin.
Okay, so you're aiming for professional thoroughness. Knowing the rules isn't enough. You need to be able to spot those low-scoring pitfalls, those trap answers that look really tempting when you're under pressure.
We have to dismantle those traps. First, delaying the report. Waiting until your shift is over or the next day, it lets your memory fade, it increases the risk that the hazard is still there, and it breaks that requirement for prompt documentation.
And what about just fixing it quietly?
That's the second trap. Fixing the issue quietly or trying to conceal it, that fundamentally breaks your duty of candor, and it deprives the organization of vital learning data. It effectively blocks the entire PSIRF process.
And what about the content of the report itself? Any traps there?
Avoid blaming individuals in the report. As we said, that's opinion over fact, and it just destroys the psychological safety that makes others willing to report their own near misses. And another trap is to try some unprofessional workaround, like asking the patient or their family to complain about a systemic issue just to get the ball rolling. Your job is to use the established safety system, not to outsource the responsibility for governance.
That really makes the structure of your actions essential. We need a simple memory hook that ties everything together from that immediate clinical response right through to the final system requirement.
The report mnemonic covers that whole spectrum, from the immediate safety stabilization right through to the follow-up.
Okay, let's use that to reinforce the hierarchy.
So R is for reduce risk now. That's the immediate make safe action. E is for explain to patient, meeting that candor duty promptly. P is present facts. Writing the objective report to LFPSC. O is for ongoing risk escalate. Noting any persistent hazards that need that PSIRF attention. R is response via PSIRF remedies, ensuring that learning process is actually triggered.
And the final T?
And T is for track learning timestamp, following up and documenting the reference number to make sure that loop actually gets closed.
That's a really dynamic, actionable structure. It forces you to comply with both clinical safety and your governance duty. So the move to PSIRF and LFPSC means the focus has shifted entirely to systemic learning.
Indeed. We've covered the key takeaways. Safety actions always come before reporting. You must record facts promptly to LFPSC, linking this to your duty of candor. And you have to proactively escalate those persistent system hazards to make sure they enter the PSIRF process and protect future patients.
This raises an important question, though, one that really defines the highest level of professional engagement.
Incident reporting is just the start. It's not the end. The highest professional duty is making sure the learning actually happens. If you file a factual report about a systemic failure, say recurrent broken equipment or a persistent staffing error, and weeks later nothing has changed, and the PSRP response is clearly not enough.
What's the next step?
Exactly. What is the next step in escalation? How do you document that the official response has failed or been blocked? And who in the organization's governance structure, beyond your local senior, do you turn to? That ongoing, persistent pursuit of systemic improvement, making sure the organization acts on the facts you gave them, that is the true measure of professionalism.
That is an excellent thought to leave us with. So, use that report structure to organize your actions, stabilize the patient, be candid, and file that factual report. Recognize that these systems, LFPSC and PSIRF, are fundamentally tools for cultural change, moving the focus from who to why. Apply that knowledge, and you're not just a reporter, you're an active agent of patient safety.